Which political party in Nigeria does Jesus Christ belong to? I might have to rephrase this because he might not belong to any party, but might support a party. Which political party in Nigeria does Jesus support? To answer this question, let us first find out which party he belonged to or supported whilst he walked the face of the earth over 2,000 years ago. At the time Christ was born, his people lived in captivity under the rulership of a benevolent dictator called Caesar Augustus. Born in 63 BCE, he came to power in 31 BCE after a period of political unrest following the murder of Julius Caesar. The Roman Republic struggled for a time in civil war when Octavian, later called Augustus, took the throne. Octavian was the adopted heir of Julius Caesar and would rule in the footsteps of his surrogate father, who had led with near dictatorial authority. After his death, Julius Caesar was officially deified, while mourners chanted, "Those whom I saved destroyed me." Celebrated as a hero after the strife of civil war, Augustus was considered the great source of peace for Rome. After defeating the enemies of Rome, he was celebrated as a great savior to the people who would have likely been hopeless had victory not been achieved. The themes of freedom, justice, peace, and salvation permeated his reign. Whenever the great deeds of Augustus were proclaimed, they were presented with the Greek term euangelion, which is translated good news or gospel. He had a large army at his disposal for any would-be revolutionary movement against the empire. Augustus, who was hailed as the bringer of Pax Romana, ironically sustained the so-called peace of Rome through instilling fear within the conquered territories. In other words, the peace that Rome claimed was actually from military exhaustion rather than virtue. And one Roman cynic did put into the mouth of a conquered foe a century later the accusation that the Romans created a wilderness and labeled it peace. Coins from the period had the image of a goddess on one side and the image of Augustus on the reverse, with the inscription of a deity, Caesar Divi. Emperor worship became ingrained in the culture of many parts of the empire. Belief in the divinity of Augustus was so profound that even the succeeding emperors after Augustus were considered the son of God, because they continued the tradition of deifying the former emperor by claiming to have seen his soul ascending to heaven. Interesting story. It's important I give this background because of where I am going to. During the first century, Rome had dominion over Israel. In 63 BC, after much turmoil and civil war within Israel, the Romans invaded and conquered Jerusalem. In order to keep control over the Galilean and Judean peoples, Julius Caesar and the Senate installed Herod as king. It will take Herod 3 years to finally gain all control over the still hostile Jews, but he would in due course keep a firm rule over the whole region. He eventually became one of Augustus's favorite military leaders and was admired by the new emperor because of his immense development program. Not only did Herod expand the temple in Jerusalem to be more grandiose and Hellenistic Roman in style, but he also imposed a sacrifice that the priest will give on behalf of Rome and the emperor. Additionally, Herod had whole cities named to give reverence to Caesar, as well as imperial temples and fortresses to reinforce Roman control. The great building campaigns were not possible without taxing the peoples of Galilee, Samaria, and Judea greatly, leaving the majority in poverty. Not only were they required to pay taxes to the empire, but they continued to function as a temple state and were also required to pay the tithes and sacrifices of the Jewish religion. The offensiveness of being forced into what could be labeled idolatry, along as the difficult economic reality, must not be understated. I have gone to great lengths to paint the picture of he who ruled the Roman Empire at the time Christ was born. At the time of the birth of Christ, Caesar Augustus had issued a decree that the whole world will be counted. This was so that the emperor will be able to tax the people with greater accuracy. This was how Joseph and Mary ended up in Bethlehem to be counted, and ended up having the baby Jesus there in order to fulfill the prophecy of Micah. But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. The demand for tribute to Rome and taxes to Herod, in addition to the tithes and offerings to the temple and priesthood, dramatically escalated the economic pressures on peasant producers, whose livelihood was perennially marginal at best. After decades of multiple demands from multiple layers of rulers, many village families fell increasingly into debt and were faced with loss of their family inheritance of land. The impoverishment of families led to the disintegration of village communities, the fundamental social form of such an agrarian society. These are precisely the deteriorating conditions that Jesus addresses in the Gospels: impoverishment, hunger, and death. This then brings me to an often quoted text that seems to summarize his attitude to the Roman government. In Luke 20, Jesus is approached while teaching in the temple and asked whether it is lawful to pay tribute to Caesar. He answers famously that his hearers are to give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. This passage is often interpreted to support a dichotomy between church and state affairs. Spirituality is viewed as heavenly, while politics are considered as earthly affairs. Is this what he's really saying, though? What actually belongs to Caesar and what belongs to God? Which party does Christ support in Nigeria? PDP, Labour, APC, or ADC? Or is it one of the other 14 parties I have mentioned? Next week, I will answer these questions and many more. But until then, stay blessed and stay safe. God bless you all.